Watchmaking is a discipline defined by complicated mathematics, but some horological equations are easier to follow than others. The Overseas is Vacheron Constantin's most well-known and popular watch model. Retrograde displays are one of Vacheron Constantin's signature complications. So, what happens when you combine the two? You get this: the Vacheron Constantin Overseas Moon Phase Retrograde date, the first retrograde display in a sports watch for this storied Swiss brand, and a watch that places two quite old-school complications within a thoroughly sporty and modern timepiece. First, let's talk a bit about retrograde displays, of which retrograde dates are the most common variant. First emerging in the 18th century and utilised by watchmakers like the legendary Abraham Louis Breguet, a retrograde display is one where, rather than having a hand that completes a full 360 around a watch's dial, you have a hand that moves in an arc-like display that jumps back to the beginning when it reaches the end of its sequence. For instance, the 31st of the month in a date display. Vacheron Constantin produced their first retrograde watch in the 1930s, a double retrograde time display pocket watch called the Bras en l'air, with the brand really starting to embrace retrograde displays in the 90s, making it a signature of theirs. The advantage of a retrograde display is that they're typically highly legible, but they're also a challenge to produce. They're complex, require tight calibration, and are challenging to implement in conjunction with other complications. In short, it's complicated mathematics. However, that's exactly what Vacheron Constantin has done with the Overseas Moon Phase Retrograde date, elegantly dividing the Overseas dial into two hemispheres: an upper hemisphere with the retrograde date, and a lower hemisphere housing a moon phase aperture. Like most Vacheron Constantins with retrograde date displays, the Overseas Moon Phase Retrograde date mounts the date hand on the same center pinion as the hour and minute hands. The date hand is dark blue with a light blue loomed tip, making it a bit stealthy, but still easy to distinguish. Unlike most models in the Overseas collection, which can be had in a variety of case metals and dial colours, the Overseas Moon Phase Retrograde date, at least currently, is available in only one spec, in a 41mm stainless steel case with a blue dial, which is the Phase 3 Overseas definitive colour and metal combination. You'd think that, given the genteel nature of its complications, that Vacheron Constantin might have been tempted to imagine the Overseas Moon Phase Retrograde date in a precious metal like gold. However, I really like the juxtaposition between the sportiness of that steel and blue combo with the vintage vibes of its retrograde date and moon phase. But what do you think? Does steel and blue suit the Overseas Moon Phase Retrograde date? Would you like to see it in a different dial colour or metal? Let me know in the comments. Speaking of that blue dial, it's a cut above the blue dials found on other Overseas models, as it features a surprisingly thick layer of semi-translucent lacquer applied on top of a sunburst finish. It's almost enamel-like, with the glossiness of the lacquer particularly apparent around the moon phase aperture. It's a distinctly luxurious touch, fitting for this elevated take on the Overseas. But, as you may have garnered, the Overseas Moon Phase Retrograde date isn't one of the sportiest Overseas models that Vacheron Constantin offers, despite all my talk about its sportiness. Its in-house caliber 2460 R31L/2, borrowed from the Patrimony line, only features 50 metres of water resistance and a 40-hour power reserve. Compare that to the caliber 5100 that powers the standard Overseas 3-hander, which features 150 metres of water resistance and a 60-hour power reserve. But let's be real, the Overseas Moon Phase Retrograde date isn't designed to be an out-and-out sports watch anyway. That said, I dare say it's more robust than the majority of watches that feature either or both of its two namesake complications, and it's still unmistakably a sports watch. Its movement is in no way inferior either. The high-precision moon phase only requires a single correction every 122 years, and it features a soft iron inner shield to protect against magnetism, and the beautifully decorated movement boasts the Geneva seal. Befitting its sporty meets sophisticated character, the Overseas Moon Phase Retrograde date comes with 3 different integrated strap options: an integrated steel bracelet with Maltese cross-shaped links and a butterfly clasp, as well as a blue rubber strap and a blue leather strap. It's easy to swap out each option thanks to the Overseas quick change strap system, which, 8 years on, still stands out as one of the best in the business. The Vacheron Constantin Overseas Moon Phase Retrograde date is available now from Vacheron Constantin retailers and is priced at 73,500 Australian dollars. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Time+Tide to support us going forward. And until next time, don't be a stranger.